Hello, friends. This is Andre, and I continue sharing notes from the most unusual corners of the planet. Today I am in the heart of central Turkey in an amazing region called Cappadocia. This place seems to be from another era, or even from another planet. Here, time seems to have stopped, leaving us with truly unique landscapes. Volcanic valleys, cave cities, underground temples, and an atmosphere steeped in early Christianity. Friends, I am glad to welcome you to the channel. Today we are in Cappadocia. And today we will see many interesting places here, connected with the history and culture of this region. And you, please, subscribe to the channel and be sure to watch the episode to the very end. At the very end you will be greatly appreciated for watching. Don't forget to follow the links under the video. You will see a lot of useful information there. In the meantime, we are starting our fascinating walk through the central part of Turkey. Today, we will walk through the ancient cities of Cappadocia. Enjoy your walk. Let's take a walk together and discover some of the key sites of this amazing region. The first stop is Ortahisar Castle. It is literally carved into the rock, and from its top there is a panoramic view that will take your breath away. When you stand there, it feels like you are in an ancient legend. The castle is part of the living, breathing Cappadocia. You can't understand it from a photo, you have to stand in that wind, smell the stone and the sun to feel it. The next stop is the open-air museum in Goreme. This is not just a museum, but a whole valley of ancient monasteries and churches carved into the rocks. Outside are natural wonders, and inside are frescoes that are over 1,000 years old. Imagine. The first Christians hid here from persecution, created their communities, prayed, wrote, and created. This is a special place, protected by UNESCO. And right in the center of this complex is the Dark Church, a place where photography and video shooting are prohibited. But if you find yourself there, do not rush to get upset. This ban is like a filter. Only those who are truly looking for feelings, and not just footage for social networks, enter. And the feelings here are very strong. The walls and vaults are covered with frescoes depicting Christ, the apostles, angels. But many of the faces are crudely crossed out. Historians believe that this could have been done by the Muslim Seljuks when they captured these lands. It is hard to look at the destroyed images, but at the same time, this makes the place alive. It is imbued with pain and resilience. Entrance to the Dark Church alone costs €5, and although this is not the cheapest ticket, every impression is priceless. Entrance to the open-air museum in Goreme costs an additional €20. But you will see everything for free thanks to my walk, which I filmed especially for you. Be sure to leave a thank you for the walk under this video. Leave a comment. I will be pleased to read your comments and support. And finally, we go to the Paşabağları Valley, aka the Valley of Monks, a museum and an open-air archaeological site. This place is like a country of stone giants. Huge rock pillars made of tuff and basalt, which seem to have stone hats on them. Here, nature has gone crazy and created something unreal. Previously, monks settled right inside these rocks, carving out cells and chapels in them. Cappadocia is not just a journey. It is a path through centuries, faith, pain, and the grandeur of nature. It is a place where history has not died, but continues to live and speak to everyone who is ready to hear it. I am now standing on top of Ortahisar Castle, in the charming town of Ortahisar, and believe me, the view from here is simply beautiful. Fantastic valleys with bizarre rock formations, resembling the scenery of a film about another planet, stretch out around. And in the distance, dozens of colorful hot air balloons float above the horizon, but usually only in the morning. Hot air balloons are the calling card of Cappadocia and a sight that gives you goosebumps. The climb to the castle was a real adventure. The narrow, chipped stone steps, slippery in places from time, made you sweat, but every step was worth it. Ortahisar Fortress is not just a castle, but a huge rock, hollowed out from the inside, with a whole network of tunnels, rooms, and passages. This colossus rises above the town by 90 meters and is considered one of the largest cave fortresses in the region. I looked inside. There are labyrinths carved directly into the tuff, with tiny rooms where people once lived. The atmosphere is as if you were in the Middle Ages or even earlier, in the era of the Hittites, who were the first to use these rocks as shelters back in the Bronze Age, about 2,000 years BC. The history of this place is fascinating. Ortahisar, which translates as Middle Fortress, was a strategically important point on the trade routes linking Constantinople with the East. During the Byzantine period, from about the 4th to the 11th centuries, the fortress served as a refuge for Christians hiding from raids. They carved out of the rock not only houses, but also churches, warehouses, and even dovecots. Yes, pigeons were important here. Their droppings were used as fertilizer. During the Ottoman era, the fortress continued to be inhabited, and locals stored fruits and vegetables in its cool caves, a natural refrigerator. To this day, you can find such cave warehouses in Ortahisar, where lemons and oranges are stored, exported all over the world. Of Ortahisar itself is a real-time capsule. Narrow streets, houses carved into the rocks, and small cafes serving aromatic Turkish coffee and fresh baklava. I just tried the local gozleme, a flatbread with cheese and spinach, and it was love at first bite. The locals are incredibly friendly. One old man tried to teach me Turkish. I also learned that Ortahisar is famous for its handmade carpets. I almost left with a huge patterned beauty, but my backpack said no. From here, from above, you can see how Cappadocia breathes history. Every rock, every cave city is a page of a 1,000-year chronicle. I don't want to go down, but there are still a lot of plans ahead. Cappadocia, you are already in my heart. Friends, did you know that Ortahisar was once the capital of pigeon farming? Write in the comments, would you like to climb this fortress or maybe fly over it in a hot air balloon? I'm waiting for your stories. Meanwhile, we are driving from Ortahisar towards the open-air museum in Goreme, and the road itself is already part of the excursion. First, we leave the small but picturesque town of Ortahisar, leaving behind its famous rock castle, seemingly growing out of the ground. Narrow streets gradually give way to a winding road through hilly terrain. Around us are the soft contours of the Cappadocian landscape. Sandy cliffs, white, ochre, pinkish, with bizarre shapes, as if someone had deliberately sculpted them by hand. Along the way you come across vineyards, fig trees, and the occasional stone-built house. Locals sometimes set up stalls with homemade wine, jam, and dried apricots right by the road, all under wooden awnings decorated with grapevines. The road is leisurely, which gives you time to look around. There are few cars. Tourists often travel by bicycle, moped, or on foot. A sense of coziness and unhurriedness reigns everywhere. The Goreme Valley suddenly opens up, as if on the palm of your hand. Fantastic stone mushrooms, cave houses, fairy chimneys. All this is surrounded by mountains and hills, as if Cappadocia hides its wonders from prying eyes until the last moment. We pass several panoramic points. We want to stop at each one. In the distance, tourist buses are already visible at the entrance to the open-air museum in Goreme. Only a few minutes remain to the destination. And ahead is a real treasure trove of the ancient world, carved right into the stone. So what is the open-air museum in Goreme? How was it created? What peoples lived here? And why was this particular place chosen? And what does this have to do with Christian holy lands, if these lands have long belonged to Muslim Turks? Goreme Open-Air Museum is not a classic museum with halls, but a whole valley of monasteries and cave churches carved out of soft volcanic rock. There are dozens of rock rooms, frescoes, cells, refectories, and chapels dating from about the 9th to 13th centuries. It is called a museum because the Turkish state took the space under protection, preserved the frescoes, and opened it to visitors as a cultural monument. In 1985, it was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. Who lived here, and why did they choose this particular place? Cappadocia has been inhabited since the Bronze Age. Then the Hittites, Persians, Romans, Byzantines, Armenians, Seljuks, Ottomans. One of the most historically rich regions on the planet. Why did you live here? Firstly, it is geology. The local rocks are soft, tough, easy to work. People could carve entire houses, churches, even underground cities in it. Secondly, it is secrecy. Byzantine Christians fled here from persecution in the 4th to 10th centuries, first by the Romans, then by the Arabs. It is easy to hide here. The monasteries blend into nature. Many of them are almost invisible from the outside. Thirdly, it is security. In Cappadocia, not only churches were carved out, but also multi-level underground cities, for example, Derinkuyu and Kemakli, where thousands of people could hide for months, with food warehouses, ventilation, and wells. But here we are already inside this museum complex. Let me remind you that prices in Turkey are now very high. And to get here, you will have to pay 20 euros per person. And for you, this excursion is free. Like this video, because it is definitely worth it. So here is Goreme, a Christian holy place under the sky of Muslim Turkey. Goreme is the heart of Cappadocia and perhaps one of the most amazing places in Turkey. Today, the region is known for its volcanic tuff landscapes, hot air balloons at dawn, and rock hotels. But behind this tourist facade lies a rich spiritual and cultural heritage that is carefully preserved and maintained within the framework of the secular Turkish Republic. The history of Goreme begins in the 2nd century AD, when the first Christian hermits began to settle in these rocky valleys. They were ascetics who rejected the bustle of the world for prayer, solitude, and a contemplative life. Although they did not belong to organized monasteries, these hermits formed a special spiritual community that eventually became the basis for the development of the monastic tradition in Asia Minor. Cappadocia attained its greatest spiritual significance in the 3rd and 4th centuries AD, when 3 of the greatest fathers of the Church, the so-called Cappadocian Fathers, lived and preached there. These were Basil the Great, Bishop of Caesarea, his brother Gregory of Nyssa, and Gregory the Theologian, also known as Gregory of Nazianzus. It was Basil the Great who, upon returning from Constantinople to Caesarea, the capital of Cappadocia, inspired many to the ascetic way of life. Thanks to his work, the monastic way of life spread throughout the region. From the 4th to the 13th centuries, the rocky valleys of Goreme were vibrant monastic settlements. Churches, chapels, cells, refectories, classrooms for students, and even monasteries for women were built here. Almost every rocky outcrop or secluded cave was occupied by people dedicated to serving God. Religious education was conducted on site, and it was in Goreme that one of the first forms of monastic university developed. Inside the cave temples, unique frescoes have been preserved, depicting scenes from the Bible, the life of Jesus Christ, stories from the Apocrypha, and the faces of saints. The paintings were done in 2 ways. Either directly on the stone or on a pre-prepared surface using tempera, known as the fresco secco technique. Many of these images, despite their venerable age, still impress with the depth of color, artistic skill, and theological content. However, not all the frescoes have survived in their original form. A significant portion of the images have been damaged. The faces of the saints are often crossed out, their eyes scratched out, and their figures mutilated. This is not the result of time, but of deliberate destruction that began in the 9th century, when the Muslim Seljuks came to the region. According to the religious beliefs of that era, any depiction of living beings, especially religious scenes, was considered taboo. These actions were not purely vandalistic, they were an expression of a different cultural norm that replaced the Byzantine tradition. Despite all this, modern Turks not only do not destroy the Christian heritage, but, on the contrary, carefully protect it. There are several reasons for this. Firstly, the cultural and historical value of these objects is beyond doubt for anyone, neither historians nor the Turks themselves. Secondly, tourism has become the most important source of income in the country. Cappadocia, and especially Goreme, bring in millions of dollars annually. Foreign tourists from Europe, Korea, The USA, Russia, and other countries strive to get here to see the unique rock temples and feel the breath of the Iris. Many churches, for example, the famous Dark Church, are open with special tickets costing about €5. And, despite the ban on photography and video shooting inside, interest in them does not wane. On the contrary, the ban only fuels the desire to see everything with their own eyes. Finally, preserving Göreme is a question of image. Modern Turkey, despite its increasingly religious society, remains formally a secular state. Supporting its Christian heritage serves as a confirmation of its multinational and multi-confessional past. It is a powerful signal that here, in the land that once belonged to Byzantium, respect for other religions remains an important value. Göreme Open Air Museum was officially opened to the public in 1967. Today, it includes such sites as the Church of St. Basil, the Church of St. Barbara, the Church of the Snake, the church with the frescoes of the Last Judgment, the Convent for Girls, Tokali Kilis, and, of course, the Dark Church, one of the best preserved and most spectacular. Walking along the dusty path between the rocks of Göreme, a person seems to be transported to another dimension. This is not just a place, it is a living monument to faith, pain, art, and patience. Here, eras, religions, and destinies intersect. Here, Christian shrines live under the sky of Muslim Turkey, not as museum exhibits, but as living evidence of the complex, multi-layered history of this land. Göreme is not just a piece of land in the heart of Turkey. It is a living layer cake of history, where every crack in the tuff hides the memory of millennia. The area was inhabited back in the days of the Hittites, a powerful Indo-European people who inhabited Asia Minor between approximately 1800 and 1200 BC. At that time, there was no talk of Christianity or the Islamic world. This was a land of pagan gods, warlike tribes, and the first states. Centuries passed, and Göreme found itself at the crossroads of great civilizations. Between the Greeks and the Persians, who fought tirelessly for power over Anatolia. Later, already in the era of the Eastern Roman Empire, these lands became the arena of clashes between the Byzantine Greeks and the Arabs, Seljuks, and Mongols. Each arriving people left its mark, but could not erase the spiritual core that was formed here in the early centuries of Christianity. Everything changed in the 4th century AD, when the first monks came here not for conquest, but for solitude. Christian hermits, fleeing persecution from the Roman Empire, found in these rocks the ideal place for prayer and silence. They followed the teachings of the Bishop of Caesarea Basil the Great, one of the greatest theologians of the time. He not only inspired them to asceticism, but also formed an entire system of monastic life. These monks did not seek comfort. They carved out cells by hand, created churches right in the rocks, built modest refectories and places for study. But danger soon came here too. In the 8th and 9th centuries, Arab raids became a threat not only to bodies but to faith itself. Then monks and civilians began to build underground cities, real multi-level fortresses like Kamakli and Derinkuyu. There, under the earth, in closed corridors and ventilation shafts, they could live for weeks, escaping from invasions. These shelters were not just caves, they were thoughtful life support systems, with wells, storerooms, places for prayer. From the 6th century to the end of the 9th century AD, Göreme became one of the largest Christian centers in the region. Just think about it. There were more than 400 churches in these rocks and their surroundings. And although they were carved out of tuff rather than built of marble, their significance was in no way inferior to the greatest basilicas of the Christian world. Today we walk along these ancient valleys, look at frescoes, think about beautiful photos, and do not always realize. Here, in the silence of Cappadocian stones, more than 1,500 years ago spiritual life was in full swing. Here they prayed, hid, created. Here was the border between fear and faith, between destruction and preservation. Tuff is not just the rock on which Cappadocia's cities stand. It is the very fabric of the region, born millions of years ago in the fiery inferno of ancient volcanoes. The area around Goreme and other Cappadocian valleys was once at the epicenter of powerful eruptions. Huge volcanoes such as Ursiais, Hazandag, and Galadag threw gigantic masses of red-hot ash and lava into the atmosphere. As it cooled, this ash eventually compressed, thickened, and turned into tufa, soft, porous, but surprisingly strong stone. Its main feature is its ability to be cut and chiseled. It is thanks to this structure that thousands of years ago people began to carve out entire cities, monasteries, churches, and houses in tuff, literally cutting out living space for themselves right in the rocks. But nature itself did not stop at one stage. Over the following millennia, rains, winds, and temperature changes continued to sculpt real masterpieces of geological sculpture from tough masses. This is how the famous fairy chimneys appeared, stone pillars, sometimes crowned with dark stone caps of harder lava. These formations are especially famous in the so-called Valley of Love, a place where nature has shown itself in the most fantastic forms. Meanwhile, leaving behind dusty paths and ancient rock monasteries, we finally approached a special place that in Cappadocia has almost sacred status. This is the Black Church, one of the most beautifully preserved Christian shrines in the entire region. Everything is special here. From the majestic silence inside to the strict rules that protect this silence. To get inside, we went through a separate ticket office, where, despite the stated €5, we were still charged €6 for entry, a common practice, especially if the ticket was recently renewed. The tourist pass is not valid here, and that's because the Black Church stands apart. It's not just part of the open-air museum complex in Goreme. It's its heart. And here we are inside. The first thing that catches your eye is the ban on photography and video shooting. The official reason is that flashbulbs spoil ancient frescoes that are over 1,000 years old. But there is another, unadvertised reason. The fewer photos that are circulated on the internet, the more people come in person. This is a strategy. And yes, the guards monitor this strictly. The slightest movement of the hand with a phone or camera, and they will take you out instantly. It really took me a lot of effort to capture what you will see. For this, I ask for a special like and comment, because not everyone will see what got into the frame. But first things first. The Black Church got its name from the lack of light. There are no windows, and the sun's rays hardly penetrate inside. It is this darkness that has preserved its frescoes in incredible freshness. We see faces, stories, gospel scenes, executed in the Byzantine tradition, as if the artist had just put down his last brush yesterday. Christ Pantocrator is depicted here, majestic, holding a book in his left hand and making a blessing gesture with his right. This is not just an image. It is an iconic symbol denoting the ruler of the universe. His face crowns the central dome of the church. No Byzantine church could do without this image. A little further on we see the dais scene, Christ in the center, next to the Virgin Mary and John the Baptist, praying for the souls of sinners on the day of the Last Judgment. Their gestures are a plea addressed not only to God, but also to us, the viewers, standing in the silent semi-darkness. Particularly touching is the scene of the three Marys who came to the tomb of Christ and found it empty. This is one of the earliest gospel scenes preserved here. Mary Magdalene, Mary Klopova, and Mary Salome. Their astonished faces seem to come to life before our eyes. But despite this beauty, one cannot help but mention something else, the barbaric traces left by time and people. As in all of Turkey, the faces of the saints in the Black Church were deliberately defaced. Whose hands these were is not exactly known. Presumably, the Muslim Seljuks who captured the region in the 11th century. They scratched out the eyes, mouths, and faces of the saints with particular fury. This is not an accident, but a deliberate destruction of Christian imagery, which is considered unacceptable in Islam. And yet, despite the barbarity, despite the darkness of centuries, the church survived. And what is surprising is that the Turks today are making great efforts to preserve it. Why? It's simple. Goreme is not only history, it is tourist gold, And the preservation of unique Christian monuments here is not just a gesture of goodwill. It is strategy, economics, cultural diplomacy. Every traveler who buys a ticket and inhales the dust of frescoes brings a piece of their energy and finances the preservation of a heritage that would otherwise have disappeared long ago. And in this context, the Black Church is not just a museum. It is a living testimony to a multi-layered and sometimes tragic history in which saints, sinners, conquerors, and pilgrims have left their mark on the soft tuff of Cappadocia. Interestingly, the upper layer of rock formed by solidified lava acts as a natural protective dome. It protects the softer tuff from rapid destruction, thanks to which entire rock monasteries, created in the 4th and 5th centuries AD, have survived to this day. Thus, tuff in Cappadocia is not just a building material. Friends, thank you very much for watching this episode to the very end. Follow the links under the video. Follow me on Instagram. And also be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave comments, and follow the updates. As always, your guide Andre was with you. See you in new episodes. Now let's take a look at another amazing place, Paşabağları Museum and Archaeological Site. This place is also called the Valley of the Monks, and it is here that you can see those famous fairy chimneys, high tough columns with stone caps, as if put on by hand. These natural formations seem unreal, like scenes from a science fiction film. According to legend, it was in these rocks that hermits and monks lived, hiding from the world, hence the name of the valley. The atmosphere here is completely special. Silence, wind, rocks, and the feeling that time has stopped. A walk through Paşabağları is like a journey to another world. You simply walk among the giant stone towers, and hot air balloons fly overhead. Here you can literally touch the centuries-old history carved into the soft volcanic tuff, and enjoy the fantastic views that make this place one of the symbols of Cappadocia. And now our journey is just beginning. Ahead of us is a bright and eventful continuation. We will go north to Trabzon, walk along the embankments of Samsun, look into Ankara, the capital of modern Turkey, discover the ancient secrets of Shivas, swim in the azure waters of Antalya, visit sunny Kemer, look into atmospheric Bodrum, bright Alanya, and of course, walk through the bazaars and palaces of magnificent Istanbul. And southern, spicy Adana, and many other wonderful places await us. But our channel is not only Turkey. We travel a lot around the world: China, Japan, Georgia, Russia, Egypt, Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, European countries. All these destinations are already in our plans. Very soon new episodes will be released, where you will see the Caucasus Mountains, Buddhist monasteries, old European streets, and noisy Eastern bazaars. So subscribe to the channel, there will be incredibly interesting things ahead.